Alright, in the last video we we created a backdrop, brought in our geometry, added a couple of lights and a camera. I meant to go ahead and change the name of this one light right here. That was our key light. This is going to be our fill light. Okay. And let's go ahead and bring in one more light. So let's come up to RenderMan, Lights, Pixar Rectangle. And this one is going to be a rim light. So let's just scale him up a little bit. Okay. And for the rim light, I typically make this a little bit longer. And for this, in RenderMan, to be honest with you, I haven't quite worked out the light linking as far as RenderMan goes. I think there's a node that you have to use to get that to work. But in the meantime, we can just put the light just behind the model. I'm just going to tip this a little bit. And I should also turn this around so that arrow is pointing in the right direction. All right, so we'll do something like that. Oops. There we go. And so let's see. There we go. Let's turn this a bit more. All right. So this will do for now. Let's just maybe put this down here a little bit. All right. So let's go ahead now and open up our render window. I'm going to go ahead and actually, let me just name this light right here. This is going to be the rim light. Okay. And there we go. So we've got that all set up. You'll notice that each one of these lights has the exposure set to 0, the intensity set to 1. And as we start controlling these lights here, let me just push this back here. As we start controlling these lights, we're going to be playing with the exposure and not the intensity. Now, I know that if you've learned mental ray and if you've used to doing those kinds of lights where you do adjust the intensity, this is a little bit different, okay? You have to kind of get used to that for RenderMan and Arnold. They're both kind of the same way. We adjust the exposure, which again is truer to, you know, if we were lighting and or playing with cameras and we wanted to let more light in, we would adjust the exposure to do that. So this is kind of similar to that. All right. Now that we've got that set up, let's go ahead and come up to RenderMan, and you'll see RenderMan IPR render, which is the same as this button right here. All right. So what I like to do before I start the render is actually go into my specific camera view. So shot cam right here, just like that. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and just right click on this IPR button, go to camera, and make sure that I do shot cam. Okay. This is going to open up this little app, this RenderMan IT app. You can see this is what we're getting right here right away. Okay. So let's do a couple things. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to turn off some of these lights. So let me just move this render off for a second. I'm going to go ahead and select all of these lights right here and hit Control H to hide them. Okay. And just let me come over here and sort of refresh the render. Okay. And now I'm going to come in here and just one light at a time. You can see this is kind of what it's giving me. Now, typically, when you turn your lights off, you shouldn't get any kind of light, any kind of image in here. So I'm not sure what's going on here right now. But again, let me just kind of move this over. I'm going to come in here and take this key light, and I'm going to hit Shift H to turn it on. And then right here in the exposure, let's go ahead and just knock that up to say 1. And let's go ahead and re-render this. Camera, shot cam. There we go. And there we go. So that's a little bit better right there. So you can see now what that exposure is doing. Let's knock this up to 2. You can see how that adds more light. Sometimes with the render, you have to kind of refresh it to get it to show properly. All right. So don't be afraid to just come back in here, right click, choose your camera, make sure that you choose the right camera right there. Okay. So you can see that as we adjust the exposure, we're getting more light. Let's hit 3. All right, so that's a little bit bright. Let's go back down to 2 for now. Okay. And I'm going to take that key light and hit Control H to hide it. Right. There you go. So this is what we should see when you have your lights turned off. There should not be anything showing on the screen right there. Okay. So we've already set our key light to 2. Let's go to our fill light. I'm going to hit Shift H. All right. And then in the exposure right here, let's go ahead and try 2 like we did with the key light. Okay. Now again, not seeing anything right here, so let's come over here and refresh this. And there we go. Okay. So I find, and I don't know if it's the way I'm doing this or not, but I find that with RenderMan I have to refresh it a lot more than I do with Arnold. This is not a slam against RenderMan. It's probably user error. Okay. But I just a heads up. All right. Don't be afraid to re-render it like that. Okay. Now remember, this is an IPR render. There is a difference between, you'll see there's 2 buttons right here, IPR, and this other button here is like the button that you'll use for your final render. Okay. So don't worry about that button for now. We're just concentrating on IPR. So with our fill light and an exposure of 2, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and take that fill light and hit Shift H again to hide it. Or sorry, Control H to hide it. There we go. Oh, there you go. See, it goes black. And now let's take the rim light, hit Shift H and turn that on. And let's take the exposure there and try 2, like we did with the other ones. Now again, I'm not seeing anything, but that doesn't make me think I should increase the exposure. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. Let's crank this up to 60. And you can see that nothing's happening, right? So I need to refresh it. So let's put this back down to about 2 and come over here, right-click, and shot cam. And there you go. So you can see how that is lighting that up. Now that's a little bit more than I want. So let's go ahead and try that at 1. Okay. Now this is an example right here where I'm going to have to probably move this camera around a bit. So let's come into Panels, Perspective. All right, and let's make this light a little bit smaller. Okay, and let's move it over a bit. All right, and let's see. I might come in here and I don't know, raise it up, tip it a bit more. So I'm just trying to get a little bit of rim going around the side of him right there, just to sort of pop the model away from the background a bit. So let's bring this over. And there you go. That's starting to get kind of what I want right there. Okay, that's a little bit better. Let's try raising up the exposure to, let's try 1.5. Okay, let's try 2. All right. So that's not feeling too bad right there. It's a little brighter on the floor than I'd like it to be. So let's see if we can fix that at all. Maybe making this a little bit smaller. So again, let me bring back my render and see what we've got here. I'm just going to have to move this off to the side because it keeps wanting to hide under Maya. So again, let me just make this a little bit smaller so you can see, you know, it's just a matter of all kinds of little tweaks and adjustments. That's why they call these test renders. Okay, and you should be doing lots of them if you want to be doing this properly. Okay, all right. So let me see what I get right here. All right, that's too much. All right, so you can see right here, this is what we're getting. I just want a little bit of rim right around there. All right, let's try that. Okay, I'm going to go with that. So now that we've got that working, I'm going to select these other 2 lights and hit Shift H to turn them on. All right, so now those lights are on, and I'm going to refresh the render. Here you go. So this is what we're getting. All right. That's not bad. All right. We're going to add one more light, though, to help even the light out just a little bit more. And that is going to be under the RenderMan tab right over here, this one that looks like a sun. If you right click on it, you'll see Pixar Dome Light. So let's go ahead and hit that. And you'll see that right away it gets a lot brighter. But the shadows that we had in the corners and all are evening out a little bit better. And we can even do a little bit better than that if we add an HDR image to that dome light. So you can see right here as we pull back, there's that dome light. Okay, so we can add an image to it. In fact, let me just push this back a bit so you can see the image. In with that the dome light selected under color map, we'll just click on the folder icon. Go to our source images folder. Now you can find hundreds of these HDR images for free all over the internet. So have a look around. You don't have to settle on the first one you find. Okay, I mean they actually do make a difference in the sort of look and feel of your render, the temperature of your render. All right. If you have a warm image or a cool image, that's going to sort of be sort of reflected onto the model a little bit. So I've just got this guy right here. I'm going to open it up. You'll see that it goes on to the dome right there. And if we come in here a bit, now let me get the render. There it is right there. Okay. Now the cool thing about this, if I go into my rotate tool, actually let me see. Okay, if I go into my rotate tool here, right, and I turn this around, you'll notice that it will make a difference into the quality of the light, all right, the direction of the light. All right, you can see, all right, because this image does have a bright sort of light source coming right here. There's an open window, right? If we scroll back a bit, you won't be able to see it. But there's like an open window right there in the image. So you can kind of turn that around, and you can see that as I turn it towards the model, it makes the model a little bit brighter. Okay, so the point here is, the lesson here is, you don't have to necessarily settle for however that comes in. You can turn it. You can even turn it up like this a little bit, or turn it down this way. So whatever whatever direction. Nobody is going to see this, so it really doesn't matter how it's sitting. All right. All right. So once we've got that in there, that's actually feeling pretty good to me. I kind of like that. So you can see how quick and easy it is to get pretty decent lighting in your render. It's not that hard. All right. Just takes a little bit of time to move those around. And if you're working on something that you're going to show to somebody for a possible job, this is absolutely the kind of thing you want to spend some time on. All right, so we've got our lights set up. Our lights are looking good. In the next video, we're going to come back and we're going to apply our displacement maps to our geometry.